Welcome to Crosstalk Solutions. My name's Chris, and we are on the road yet again. This time, 2 stops to make today, and I'm actually so happy that I am doing the 5th of 5 offices where I'm completely ripping out their network, replacing it with something decent, and then switching their phones over to a new phone system so that they can actually make good use of their phones. This client's main complaint about their previous voice over IP phones were that they couldn't use them. They couldn't use their phones at all, and they were paying a ridiculous amount of money per month for those phones. So by going in, tightening up the network at every single one of those locations, making sure that the internet bandwidth is good at all of those locations, making sure that we have good quality of service for voice over IP at all of those locations, and then by just making sure the phones are connected and working properly, and that the PBX is designed in such a way that they can actually make good use of their phones rather than just, they can make and receive calls with them. Well, a PBX is so much more than that. You have to design it properly. So by doing all of that, this customer is incredibly happy with the 4 offices I've done so far. We're getting the last final one done today. And it's going to be a relief to have this project completely done. I should mention also that throughout all of this, the customer's getting a brand new network at all of their locations. They're getting brand new phones at 2 out of 5 of the locations. They're getting a new phone system. And their ROI is about 11 months on this whole thing. They're paying so much money in internet and phone service for these 5 locations that we are essentially cutting their bill in half on a monthly basis once this is all said and done. And so the money that they're saving from that bill being cut in half translates to about an 11-month ROI, where what we have done today, 11 months from now, is going to be saving them just a ridiculous amount of money, and it's going to completely pay for itself within 1 year. So that's just the icing on the cake. So the first stop that we're making today is one of the past locations. A very simple stop, hopefully. I never like saying that because you never know. But they have one of their users that's having trouble with the printer on the new network. So it's probably just a matter of, connecting their printer, running a couple printing test pages, maybe doing a little bit of training, and we should be good to go there. And then after that, I'm heading half an hour down the coast to a little town called Yachats, where we're going to do the 5th of 5 offices. And this one, just like all the rest, is a complete mess. So I will film what I can and sort of show you guys the before and after. But first we have to go up the coast and help someone with their printer problems. We all know users and their printer problems, right? That's kind of a familiar trope in IT. That is actually what I'm doing today, is helping a user sort out some printer problems. All right, let's get to it. Hey everyone, please pardon the brief interruption, but I am excited to announce that Crosstalk Solutions has our very first channel sponsor, Skillshare. Now, Skillshare is an online learning community where you can watch thousands of videos on various topics ranging from almost anything you can think of in IT, but so much other stuff too, like video production, graphic design, marketing, productivity. I mean, the list just goes on and on. Now, being in IT, I first wanted to learn something new, so I watched DevOps Ansible for the absolute beginner. And after an hour, I had a really good understanding of the basics of Ansible. Now, Skillshare is great for IT stuff, but let's say you're looking at becoming an independent consultant. I mean, there's so much more to running your own business, and you're probably not an expert in all of the essential skills that are going to make your business successful. Well, Skillshare can help with that too. For instance, accounting in only 1 hour teaches you the basics of your cash flow, balance sheet, and income statement. Or how about getting started with email marketing, which helps you utilize MailChimp to create effective email marketing campaigns. And there are many other videos on topics such as business strategy, productivity, and entrepreneurship. Now, I love increasing my knowledge, and Skillshare is a great resource. If you join Skillshare using my link below, you can get a 2-month free trial of the Skillshare Premium membership, which lets you watch unlimited videos. And then it's less than $10 per month after that for the annual membership. All right, thank you guys so much for listening, and now back to our video. All right, Office 1 is done, and now, of course, I have to head to a different office. So Office 1 was really easy, just did a little bit of training. I made a couple of phone system configuration changes, but these phone systems, the devil's in the details, right? So if you are setting up a phone system for someone, and this is what I tell people all the time, like, I am not a mind reader. This phone system will absolutely do pretty much whatever you want it to do, right? So you just have to tell me, how can the phone system work for you, right? So tell me your workflow, tell me how you do business, and then I can adjust the phone system to adapt to the way that you do business, right? So in this case, for example, they're really not using any voicemail. They want all of their calls to come in and ring their desk, and if they don't pick up, just forward to the cell phone and end up in the cell phone's voicemail when someone calls. They're a real estate company. They live off their cell phones. So that works great. And so they just needed to tell me that, and so I went ahead and set it all up, and now they're super, super happy. And a lot of times that's all it boils down to, is just listen to the client and figure out how to make the technology work in the way that they want it to work. And if the way that they want it to work is totally off the ball crazy, then explain to them the best way that you can make something work. All right, so while I was there, they came up with two other problems. One of the other offices, the internet's completely down, and I suspect that it's just the provider is down, so we're gonna just have to call the provider and see what's up with that office. The other office that I'm gonna stop at right now, all of their phones are offline. And this is one of the things that I was afraid of with this phone system. So we have the ability to authorize particular WAN IP addresses that can connect to the PBX. There's also a thing called the responsive firewall, which should kick in even if you don't have an authorized IP address. It allows you to kind of send a few little packets through just to, authorize a phone with the SIP username and password. But if you don't authorize within a certain number of packets, it basically locks you out of the phone system. So I suspect what might have happened at this other site is that they may have gotten locked out of their phone system because their WAN IP address changed, and then maybe all of the phones were trying to re-register simultaneously or something. Regardless, that's what I got to go figure out, is why are all their phones offline? And I also have to have the discussion with them about, hey, listen, this might happen from time to time if you don't have a static IP address. None of these offices have static IP addresses, and so yeah, that can be a problem. If you are going to securely connect to a hosted PBX system, it's highly recommended to have a static IP address, just so that we can, authorize that IP address for connectivity to the PBX and then know that it's never gonna change, right? So that's exactly what we wanna do. Okay, so in the meantime, they also have me delivering a FedEx envelope from one office to the other. So I am IT guy and delivery guy at the same time. And we're gonna get down here, fix these phones, get them back online, check out what's going on with the other office where the internet's down, and then finally head down to that fifth office where I'm actually gonna have to do the complete network rip and reinstall. All right, location number 2 was super, super easy. They did not have an outage with their phones. There was just some configuration stuff that they were not aware of. I fixed that, got them all straightened out. There is an internet outage at one of their other offices, so we contacted the ISP. ISP is rolling a truck out because they were not able to get any signal to their own equipment. Their own modem was not responding back to them. So they're rolling a truck out to that other location, which hopefully I don't have to go there, because it's from now where I am in Yachts, it's an hour up the coast to get up that way. So, hopefully I don't have to go up there after I'm done with this location. But this location is where we're doing a complete network rip and reinstall. I'm going to install an Edge Router X, a UAPAC Pro access point, and then maybe, I'm not sure, I might install a US 8 150 watt switch. I'm going to have to get in there and look at the situation and sort that out as I get started on this 5th of 5 locations. So that is the next thing. And yeah, luckily it's a beautiful day out here, so let's get to work. 6 hours later, and I am finally done. This ended up being one of the more difficult offices that I've switched over, just because of a couple quirky, weird problems. This is a really old office. They've got some really old wiring, so we'll talk about that a little bit. But here, behind me, you can see the finished product. So there we have it, looking much, much better than it did. Originally, there was this big Samsung phone system up here. The power strip was not on the wall. It was just sitting inside this little area down below, which is now completely clear. So I took the power strip out of here and I moved it up to this part right here. Mounted it on the wall. Looks so much better. Then we have our Edge Router X, the US8 150 watt switch, which I did end up needing. And then Charter came in and put their equipment here. That's for the phones, and that is for the internet. Now, Charter's wiring is always a little goofy. You can see, like, this is their wiring down here, this sort of stuff. I cleaned it up a little bit. But again, not the world's best wiring job, but I've kind of run out of time here, and I think it's good enough. Certainly a heck of a lot better than what it used to be. One of the challenges I ran into was with this cable right here. This cable goes out here, and then all the way up and then upstairs. By the way, here you can see the UAP AC Pro mounted on the wall. This goes all the way upstairs, directly above, and then across the floor to the other side of the building. And that cable gave me a lot of problems. There's a phone on the other end of that cable. It's one of those Yealink T20Ps. And when I would plug the phone in, it would get power, but it wasn't able to obtain an IP address from DHCP. So then I would plug my laptop into that same connection, and the laptop was able to get a DHCP IP address, no problem. So it's like, well, what is going on here? After a bunch of troubleshooting, I finally just re-terminated the ends on both sides of that cable, and it started working. So it was something to do with just being an old cable. The ends were not connecting properly. Who knows what? After a re-termination on both sides, it started working beautifully. So I'm very happy for that. There was another spot where they've got some old wiring, once again, that goes around this office to a spot where they have a little like 10100 switch that then fans out into a printer and one other phone even further away. And that whole setup was giving me all sorts of problems too. It was to a point where if I would sort of get it in the right place, it would work fine. But if I like touched the cable in here at all, it would take that whole thing offline. So again, just a lot of trial and error, a lot of plugging things in different places and wiggling cables and all that. And finally, I was able to get a pretty solid connection there as well, though I still probably wouldn't want to wiggle the cables around in here too much. But that's enough for now. This office is completely switched over. They've got 200 megabits by 10 megabits cable instead of the DSL that they previously had. So that's really spectacular. And they are switched over. Their phones are now ringing in and out on the Crosstalk PBX phone system. So I'm very happy that this got done. I might have to come back once more to replace a couple things. I ran out of 2-foot cables, so I only had 3-foot cables for a couple of those runs. I'd rather sort of shorten those up a little bit, but we'll see. For now, we're going to call this one done, and yeah, that's it. Quick follow-up to the last On the Road video. I talked about a client that I had visited that's a restaurant, and on the second floor of the restaurant they had some switches that had been in their closet, you know, the network closet, for 5 years, and over the course of time, the grease from the downstairs kitchen, the grease in the air sort of wafted up and has coated much of the equipment in grease, such that when you plug things into the switch, the connectivity is iffy, right, if you will, because everything's coated in grease and it just does not make good contacts when you plug in network cables. So after that video, a number of people recommended that I try some of these dust covers. And so I have 2 different sets of dust covers here. Let's take a quick look at these, and then I'm going to plug them into my switch to see which ones I personally prefer. All right, so I will put links to both of these dust covers down below in the description, but I think these are a really good idea, especially if you have switches that are in more of a sort of industrial environment like a warehouse or a factory where they might be getting dust in them, or certainly the restaurant example that I mentioned where there's grease in the air. These are a really good idea to protect the longevity of your switches by adding these covers to any unused network ports. So the first one here is the RJ45 anti-dust cover cap protector. Now these are silicone protectors, so they're kind of like a rubberized feel. They're kind of squishy. And let's go ahead and open these ones up. Links to all of this below on Amazon, by the way. And here we go. So these are just little protectors, and they have a little tiny tab on them, I guess, for being able to pull them in and out of the network covers. Then we have these ones over here, which I thought were interesting because these are RJ Plugs Black RJ45 Dust Cover Blackout Device. And these ones are plastic. The interesting thing about these ones is that they lock into the switch ports, right? So these actually serve a double duty where supposedly when you plug these in, they've got this little tab just like an Ethernet connector, but they're shorter, right? So they sort of go all the way inside the switch, and then supposedly they're very hard to take out with your hands alone. You have to have a set of needle nose pliers to pull these out of the switch. Both of these sets of covers were in the $12 to $13 range for 100 pieces. Okay, so this is about as close up as I can get, but here we have the two different sets of plugs. These are the rubberized ones. Let's go ahead and try those first. And they stick in just like so. All right, so there's 4 of them. You can kind of see that on camera, but yeah, those are certainly going to work as dust covers, but they are very easy to take in and out. So they certainly are not going to provide any security if that's also something that you're interested in. Let's take a look at these ones now. These are the plastic ones that sort of lock into place. Has a nice satisfying click to them. All right, now these ones, I feel like yeah, those are, oh yeah, you can't get those out with your hands. So you'd have to have a pair of pliers to get those out, which again, it's super easy. If you do have a pair of pliers, they'll come right out. But yeah, these ones are very difficult to remove with just your hands. As far as aesthetically, I think the black rubberized ones look a little bit better, but again, you know, who cares, right? I think overall I prefer these ones just because they do give you a little bit of extra security. So the winner here is going to be these black security plugs here. Back out on the road. Today is Thursday, June 18th, and man, it is gorgeous outside today. I'm kind of glad that I get to be out of my office for at least a little bit. Going to check out a weird problem that's one of my clients is having with a Unify video server. 4 of their cameras went offline. No reason in particular. They've got a bunch of cameras that are connected to an edge switch. Some of the cameras in the edge switch are fine. 4 of the cameras are offline. So I'm not sure exactly what's going on there. I don't have remote access to the NVR, so I was not able to get in that way. And so now we're going to drive down there. I'm actually going to try to just pull up outside their business and try to make changes from my car connected to their Wi-Fi. That way I don't have to go in and wear a face mask and all that sort of stuff. If it's something that I can fix, just right here from my car and my laptop, I'd just certainly much rather do it that way. So that's what we're doing first. We will give it a shot and yeah, see how that works for us. Hopefully I can get it fixed. That job is done. All of the cameras are back online, and it was a little bit interesting what happened. So I had updated this customer's Unify video to the latest version about a week and a half ago. And then 3 days ago, the update to Unify Video came with new firmware for all of the cameras. And they have about 20 cameras in there. There's a mixture of like old school G2 bullet cameras, G3 domes, and G3 bullets, right? They've been adding cameras to basically actually 2 locations that connect into this one NVR. So 7 of the cameras decided that they wanted to do their firmware update. When they did the firmware update, they didn't come back online. So most of the cameras updated no problem. 7 of these cameras, which were mostly the UVC G2 bullet cameras, and then I think there was 1 or 2 of the G3 domes also, they decided that the firmware update just was going to take them offline. So label the ports in your switches, folks. I was able to get into the edge switch that I have in place at this location. I have all of the cameras listed by switch port that they're plugged into, and I was able to just power cycle the power on those switch ports for the affected cameras. 5 out of 7 of them came right back online. They were fully updated and everything was working fine. 2 of them, 1 UVC G2 bullet camera and 1 G3 dome camera, still did not come back. So the G3 dome camera, I had to take off the wall. I walked it up to where the actual switch was, and I plugged it directly into the switch, and immediately it came on, finished its firmware update, and then, you know, reconnected to the NVR. So then I pulled that one, I put it back in the location where it belongs, and it came up just fine. So for whatever reason, it was just having trouble with getting the firmware update finished at its normal location. The one that gave me the most trouble was a G2 bullet. So for that G2, I was able to SSH in, download, wget the newest firmware into the temp folder, and then rename that to fwupdate.bin and run fwupdate-m, which then went ahead and did the update manually via SSH. When it rebooted, it came back up and it connected back to the NVR just fine. So yeah, that was, I did have to go in. 5 out of 7 of the cameras I was able to get done sitting right here in my car with my laptop connected to their Wi-Fi, but 2 of the cameras did give me enough trouble that I had to put on my mask and go in there and finish those ones off. So that's it. It only took me about 30 minutes for all of that, and I am now headed back to the office to get some more work done. All right, so this next part is not an on-the-road section. This is me back at home doing some more home upgrades, but I wanted to include it in this video because I always think it's interesting to see what people do with their home network upgrades. And I have a weird situation here, so let me show you what's going on. So right inside this window here is my old office. This is where I first started shooting Crosstalk Solutions videos. Now it's just a guest room, but we also use it for some servers. Like my little server rack is in the closet in this bedroom. Now years ago, this was where my internet terminated, and eventually I had this moved. So on the other side of this coaxial connection into this room is basically just a coaxial jack and nothing else. But I've got these 2 sets of Cat 5 cables, Cat 5e actually, but these are not outdoor rated cables. And the reason that I have these 2, this one goes over to my new office. So you can see it runs along the house, around the corner into the next office over. This one here goes up into underneath there and then over to basically an access point that I have in my house. The reason I have it set up this way is because I had the access point run first, and that was fine. That's sort of when I had my office in here. That's where my switches were and all of that. And so my access point terminated to this office. This connection, though, I put in when I moved both the internet modem and my office over around the corner, right? I moved it to the next office over. So then I wanted to be able to cross-connect to my server rack in the guest room, etc., and that's why we have these sort of 2 connections going into this room. These are no longer necessary, right? So what I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to be going up to where the access point is over here underneath my back deck, and I'm going to run a cable from the access point past all of this and then around the corner straight to that office. There's no reason why we need to have these cables terminate here any longer. In fact, I'm not even using that server rack anymore in preparation for moving all of my stuff to a new house. Secondarily, I've got this other cable. This one goes all the way around the corner to my office, but this is for my sort of television area in my living room so that I have hardwired connectivity to like my Samsung TV and my Nintendo Switch and my PlayStation and, Apple TV, all that sort of stuff that needs, network connectivity. It's great to have it hardwired. So this one I would also like to replace while I'm doing it because, listen, I'm going to have to run the wires right next to each other anyways, so might as well just swap out both of these at the same time. I already have keystone jacks all over the place, so that shouldn't be too big a deal. It's just a matter of running the cable and sort of stringing it up alongside the house, which is not my favorite thing to do, but But of course it has to be done, and it'll make the new owners of the home much happier when they're not wondering why all of this stuff is networked the way that it is. You know, these things evolve over time, right? My network evolved just like any network, you know, and this is an evolution that's no longer needed. So we're going to get rid of this and also replace it with some good Cat 6 outdoor rated copper wire. Right, so this will be much better than the non-outdoor rated stuff that I have on there today. And yeah, I don't always look forward to these jobs. They're not my favorite thing in the world to do, but yeah, we got to get it done. So let's go ahead and get started. I've got about 3 hours to knock this one out, and hopefully it won't take me that long. All right, so here's where I'm going to be terminating this cable. The game plan is to take my Cat 6 cable and basically string 2 lines. I wish I had 2 rolls of this, because that'd make it so much easier. But I'm going to string 2 lines all the way over, around the corner, and then up to where they need to be, so that I've got plenty of slack to basically reuse these holes and just punch through the wall exactly where they are. And I've got keystones on both sides, so it shouldn't be too hard to terminate these. Another interesting network choice I don't remember why I made is that this is my TV area, right? So this is one of the places where I want to run another cable. The old cable I ran down here and then up and over and like so, and then up into the TV area where I've got this little you know, USW Flex mini switch currently that's powering everything. That doesn't make that a whole lot of sense though. So when I rerun the cable now, I'm gonna run it back here and poke through behind the television somewhere, because I think that makes a lot more sense. That way you can just run it into the TV straight, or you can hang a little switch on the wall back here and it's gonna be sort of out of the way in terms of cables, and you could still possibly, you know, run some cables down the cable management for your other devices like, you know, an Apple TV or whatever. So I think that's gonna be the better choice when I rerun this cable, and then I'll just cap that off with a blank faceplate. So out here on my back deck, that white cable is the old network cable. That is the coaxial that Charter ran. I really don't need that anymore either, but I don't know what the next owners are gonna want, so I'm just gonna leave that. So we're gonna pull that out of there, and I wanna instead run it out over here in the corner so that I can go up and over the window and down, basically kind of where this cable is right here, but probably the next one up, or maybe even the next one up after that. And I can't quite get the cable through here from the bottom. So we're gonna take a drill and we're just gonna drill it out right here, just so that I have enough space in between these 2 boards to get that cable up through the deck. And I know what a lot of people are gonna say. They're gonna say, Chris, how come you didn't just run everything through the crawl space? Well, on this part of my house, I don't have a crawl space, so I don't have the ability to go underneath the house. That's why I'm kind of going around. All right, so I punched through the wall right there. I've got a hole that's just big enough to get a keystone jack in there. Cable's coming through, and then you can see the inside of this Cat 6 cable has this little like plastic separator in the middle, right there. And so we have to clip off that plastic separator, clip off these little other extra little cables in here, the little strings in there, and then we're gonna put the keystone jack on, which is punched down with a 110 punch tool. All right, there we go. Finished product on the inside. Now I just have to plug everything back in and slide my TV back over, and it'll actually cover that plug up. All right, so we are all complete. You can see where they terminate. It's right there. I need to label the bottom one, but other than that, they are in, tested, and working great. Let me show you the outside. All right, so here we go. We have these 2 different links going into the wall right here. I still need to put some silicone on there. I have some cedar colored silicone that will blend in with the siding real nice. And then we have a drip loop, and then you can see it goes all the way over and around to those 2 separate locations. All right, so there you have it, all done with that project. Took me about 3.5 hours to do the whole thing, so really not too bad. and it's certainly way better when you take the time to do things properly. I'm so glad that it's outdoor rated cable, and the next owners aren't going to think that I was a crazy lunatic running wires all over the place with no rhyme or reason. So I hope you guys enjoyed this look at some on the road stuff and some at the home stuff, and we will see you in the next video.